Good morning, all my friends. I'm Andy Carob. This video is not for kids. This is another edition of book reviews for grown-ups who love fairy tales. Today we are going to be talking about In the Company of Witches by Auralee Wallace. This is a very lovely fantasy mystery book. The best way I can describe this is it's like Practical Magic meets Gilmore Girls meets Ghost Whisperer. I really enjoyed it. It was a super easy read. It was super cozy. It was a very satisfying mystery type story. There is a murder involved, so you kind of get to follow the aunts and their niece along through their journey to discover what happened in their inn. They run, I think it's an inn or a bed and breakfast, and as well as along the way, you see a lot of their character development, and you get to kind of be with them through kind of coming to terms with some, tragic things that have happened to them, as well as, their own personal struggles with their personality and their powers and all of that sort of thing. It's not a long book. It is only about 300 pages. So it's a super easy, quick, holiday cozy by the fire kind of read. It centers around a young witch. Well, not that young. That's the other thing about this book that's kind of cool, is a lot of witchy books happen to teenagers, where this one is kind of more, they don't exactly say her age, at least not that I can remember, but from the events in her life, it seems like she's in her 30s, possibly late 20s, but definitely not a teenager. She's had a husband, and her husband has passed away, so she's kind of turned her back on her powers because they couldn't help her save her husband. And also, one of the things she does is the main character is a witch of the dead, which basically means she's a medium and she can talk to spirits. And well, there is a rule in this universe that you can't, witches of the dead can't talk to loved ones who've passed away. Kind of similar to Charmed in that way, that it would mess up with the grieving process and it would make it hard for people to move on. But what can happen is that other people who've died in the town could connect with her past husband and give her his last message to her. But because she's going through so much and she's closed off so much of herself, none of the ghosts that have passed since have appeared to her, and she's kind of losing touch with that part of her abilities. So it centers around her and her two aunts. One is a kitchen witch and one is a garden witch, as well as her recluse uncle who lives in the attic and doesn't come out following some traumatic things that happened to him. So I highly recommend this book. It's super cozy and magical, and it will really, if you were a kid that loved things about witchcraft and magic and fantasy and Nancy Drew, it'll really tick that little childhood itch in your mind and in your heart for a little something whimsical, with some drama, but not too intense. It's very lighthearted drama, even though it is a murder, as I say that. But there's nothing gruesome or gory or unnerving or even really eerie about it. It's just an all-around magical good adventure. So I definitely recommend reading it. If you have, or if you do, please feel free to leave me a comment below. I love hearing if people have read what I've read. I am going to read a couple passages to give you a sense of the book. It's In the Company of Witches by Auralee Wallace. All the witches in the Warren family had different affinities. It didn't mean they couldn't do magic outside of their talent, but it was a little like being a specialist in a particular area. Izzy, of course, was a kitchen witch. While I was growing up, she always used to tell me there was very little difference between a recipe and a spell. But both were simply a set of instructions for how to put ingredients together in order to make something magical. And when directions weren't followed, well, we've all messed up a dish, or in Izzy's case, turned someone's skin a very pale shade of green. It had only happened once to me right before the spring fling dance of my senior year, but it's fine now. Usually, most everything Izzy cooked came out just right. Ivywood Hollow's breakfasts were legendary in the B&B community. Her muffins and cakes, Hello, Brina. Her muffins and cakes were always moist, her eggs were always fluffy, and her bacon was never too soft or too crisp. But more than any of that, Izzy's food was made with intention. I wasn't kidding when I said she could get anyone to do or feel just about anything if they ate at her table. If she put intention into her food, whether it be good feelings like happiness, curiosity and excitement, or other emotions like anger, jealousy, and regret, that intention usually found its way into reality. Izzy was judicious when it came to using her influence, though. She believed in a feather touch. Now Nora, first and foremost, was a garden witch. She understood plants, not just how to grow them, but what they could be used for. She had a deep connection with nature and loved trees more than she loved most people. The idea of a garden witch might seem cute, but only the very foolish underestimate what Nora could do with her plants. As a child, I once stuck my tongue out at her, and when I thought she wasn't looking, and I swear a stinging nettle smacked me on the back of the leg. I never did that again. Nora was also pretty talented at creating what I call atmosphere. Not just outside, but inside too. Much the way her sister was able to put intention into her food, Nora could put intention into a room. Cozy rooms became even cozier when she gave them her touch, and let's just say you'd never want to go into a room my aunt had decorated for Halloween. Unlike Izzy, Nora preferred bold magic, and she wasn't always a fan of following the rules. Then there was me and my Uncle Gideon. We didn't specialize the way my aunts did in creating and nurturing magic. Our talents just were. And fortunately for me, and more so for Constance, my affinity was suddenly in great demand. You see, I was a friend of the other side. Brina, her tail. I was a friend of the other side, or to put it more bluntly, a witch of the dead. Ooh la la. All right. And I'm going to read one more passage for you, and we'll see. Brina, can you, get your tail out of the way? Thank you, darling. I saw her ghost. Izzy and I froze as Mr. Henderson studied our faces intently, waiting for us to react to his big news. Finally, Izzy said, "Well, that's ridiculous." She then let out a slightly hysterical-sounding laugh. "You couldn't have seen her ghost. Ghosts don't exist. Can you imagine? What a thought, ghost in this day and age. Preposterous." I put my hand on my aunt's shoulder. Did I mention Izzy rambled when she got nervous? She snapped her mouth shut and patted my hand by way of saying thank you. "Oh, Isabel, Isabel, Isabel," Mr. Henderson said in a patronizing tone that had unfortunately become all too familiar. "It was a really good thing Nora wasn't with us this morning. You need to open your eyes to what's going on all around you. There are forces at work in this town, strange powers here in Evanfall that you couldn't possibly understand." He stopped to look up at the trees. I almost looked up too, but resisted the urge, feeling fairly certain there was nothing up there. Really, when you think about it, ghosts are the least of our worries. You'd think, given I'd spent the majority of my life seeing and talking to the ghosts, I wouldn't easily dismiss someone telling me they had seen one of their own. But as I mentioned, our neighbor was a special case, with special interests, and it was all our fault. Mr. Henderson was naturally the type of neighbor who liked to peek around curtains, but we had unfortunately provided him with the opportunity to see some things he really shouldn't have, and in short, we had created a monster. It all started when another one of our neighbors, Minnie Abernathy, had accidentally left her gate open, setting her overprotective Rottweiler free just as our lovely mail carrier Bertha was heading to her truck. The dog had gotten it into his head to make a run at her, but as luck would have it, Izzy was outside at the time watching the scene unfold. With a snap of her fingers, she turned a puddle into ice just as the dog was about to lunge, sending him harmlessly skidding out of the way. As a result, Bertha was able to get back into her truck, and Minnie was able to secure her dog. Crisis averted, right? Not quite. Regrettably, that particular incident had taken place in the middle of July, and Mr. Henderson, seeing the entire event unfold, save the snap of Izzy's fingers, made it over to examine the ice before it had fully melted. For the record, Nora had had a word with Minnie's dog shortly after that particular event. She was quite good at reasoning with animals, aside from Dog, of course, who was a bird unto his own. He's a crow named Dog. And the canine had been beautifully behaved ever since. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for Mr. Henderson. Alright, so that is what I will leave you with. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to give this book a read. If you will not regret it if you are as into witchcraft, magic, and mystery as I am. Thank you very much for watching. Ta-ta for now.